I walked in those halls and I thought, this is how schools are supposed to be. And it hurt my heart, but those are facts. But it's incredibly empowering as well. And then I just kept moving up and moving up. I actually started as a substitute teacher who became a teacher, who ended up starting the middle schools. We had middle schools, we helped with the high school, and we just kept growing it.
Eliminate the charter schools. No, we need more charter schools.
And I thought, what the heck's a charter school?
I am pro charter school personally, but I'm not going to get my opinions involved.
We're talking about the ability to build more of a private school, but using public funding. Hey now, I think this could work. The purpose of a charter school is to be what the public school isn't.
Mrs.Reddick was previously a teacher and vice president for St. Joseph Catholic School for over 16 years. Today, she is the headmaster of Unity Classical Charter School, a nonprofit North Carolina public charter school in Charlotte. Her school is all about teaching a child how to think and not what to think. Join us today as we talk more about charter schools, educational reform, teacher burnout, and more.
The Avenue of the Strongest is a podcast dedicated to exploring the lives and experiences of the most inspiring individuals from around the world. Each episode features interviews with fascinating guests who share their insights and wisdom on a variety of topics, including education, impact, motivation, health, and learning. Here are your hosts, Anayet Chowdhury and Vlad Suleiman.
So, Ms. Reddick, I want to know, when did you first realize that you wanted to actually venture out and create your own charter school?
I think it was my background knowledge and experience. I started out in public schools, so shout out to Fant in St. Louis and Cervantes in Chicago, Bellevue, closer to that East St. Louis area outside of St. Louis. And those are, two of those are real inner city urban schools. And I think at my last one, I was more disillusioned. So many kids to want to save and not really feeling like you were given the tools to truly do it. I think there was a bit of a disconnect between what you're learning in college and what you could actually do in a public school system, specifically ones that are really big, you know. And so as I was contemplating whether I wanted to stay in education or not, and I loved education, I happened to meet or get in contact with, I think he was a vice president at the time of Comcast Cable. And he hired me on, he got me onto the team and handpicked me with two others to create Comcast University. And so I eagerly took that on. I am the kind of personality who likes challenges, you know, and how are we going to do this? And this is great. I got to study Kodak and study Coca-Cola and look at their universities. And I had a blast. We literally studied with nothing. But he set us up. He got a promotion to senior VP. We had our own floor and we went out and learned about everybody that they were acquiring. Because at that time, Comcast wasn't as large and they just kept growing and growing. So it was the acquisitions of AT&Ts or the acquisitions of Time Warners or swaps. So it was trying to find out, okay, what's going on with sports? What's going on with cabling? What about the people who put in the cable? What about the sales? And I learned so much. I also learned what it's like to have an amazing budget and what you can do with an amazing budget, you know, totally different world than public schools. I hands down, different universes, much less world.
This podcast is sponsored by ArgoPrep, an award-winning educational publisher serving over 1 million students nationwide. If you're a kindergarten to 8th grade teacher or principal, be sure to check out our supplementary workbooks to get your students ready for standardized state testing. We cover all subjects from kindergarten to 8th grade. Use the coupon code AVENUE for a 25% discount off of all purchase orders. Visit us today at argoprep.com/store.
Fast forward, I really enjoyed and learned and seeing the end product of a good education, or quite frankly, maybe sometimes what's maybe not such a good education, when people can't really think for themselves, maybe great at taking directions, but they can only take one direction, or
Mm,
great at directions, but can't move beyond it, right?
mm.
And then 9/11 happened, an incredibly scary time for my family and myself. And that was horrific. Uh, but it also made my family and I sit down and reassess where we were in our world. And so we thought, we'll put the house up for sale, and then it'll probably give us a year or so time to transition to where we want to be, and maybe new roles. Little did I know, because we sold the house ourselves, we put it on the market, and we even went on vacation for a week, and found ourselves in a bidding war, and our house was sold within 3 weeks. So,
Wow.
when you're doing something right, it happens.
Right.
My sister happened to be teaching in an IB public
Okay.
school called T.L. Hanna in Anderson, South Carolina. So if you ever saw the movie Radio, and we have visited her, and we love the area. So my husband and I free fell with the kids to Anderson, South Carolina. Uh, just happened. We got a nice little house because neither one of us had jobs. So you can kind of
Yeah.
see the kind of personality I am. If I like something, it's going to work out. We can
Yeah.
make it happen, right?
Yeah.
Um, so we went there, and it was our house happened to be in an area where they were building a brand new public school. And I met the principal. I don't want to use his name just in case. Well, maybe I will.
Yeah.
Gary Brugel, wonderful, wonderful principal. And but it was a great school. It had all the bells and whistles, but it wasn't it for my kid, my oldest boy. There were disconnects, I think because of 9/11 and things that have happened. Come to find out, I believe he had some kind of an oraling process. We had started in New
Okay.
Jersey. Jersey had a really good fit for him. So for all those families who have kids who have 504s or IEP plans, I understand that world.
Mm.
Um, and I just thought, you're telling me my kid's incredibly smart, but yet not doing well on these tests, but you're pulling it. I'm like, just isn't making sense to me. So I started doing some investigations of possible alternatives for him. And I happened to find this old private school, and it was very small. And I took a tour, and let me backtrack for a second. And I'm going to give a shout out to another school in Philadelphia, because Comcast, for people who don't know it, is in Philadelphia. We got to get paid and do volunteer work when we worked for Comcast. And I happened
Okay.
to stumble upon a school called Boys Latin. And if people don't know Boys Latin, it's amazing. My understanding is it started with 3 African American women who were really concerned about how their boys were being brought up in inner city. And they didn't feel like their boys, and a lot of them who didn't have dads, weren't getting what they needed from the public school system. So they went up in front of the state to open up a school, a classical school, and they were denied. They were denied again. And finally, the third time, the state said, okay, looks like you got your ducks in a row. You want to try it, go for it. Built this phenomenal school, doing amazing things. My understanding is they're still doing well.
Wow.
Back in the days, they used to not, if kids graduated and went into the military, that wasn't considered graduating, like going in the
Okay.
way that the law used to work. Because if it wasn't for that, I personally, and that's why I always say, I think parents need to understand how they make education communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my world, all of those kids, they had an amazing graduation ratio. And to not count kids who are going into the military to pay for their college debt, that they wouldn't be included, makes no sense to me, right?
Right. Right.
It's just because they're coming from an area that they needed to find alternative funding to pay for their college education. Anyway, I walked in those halls and I thought, this is how schools are supposed to be. These young men, they were standing up tall, chest out, head up, proud, eloquent. You could stop and have a real conversation, adult conversation with this high school kid. And then I'm looking at some of our adults working, and I thought, oh, I see. There is a difference in your quality of education, and that we really do reap the seeds that we sow.
Mm.
And it hurt my heart. But those are facts, right? So anyway, back to St. Joseph's in Anderson, South Carolina. Whoop, whoop. Ended up being an amazing school for my boy. So much so that I brought my other son there. Problem is, it cost. Now, I tend to be a little bit, I'm an unconventional person. I don't have a problem saying, look, I'll take a hit on my salary if you'll let my kid go. Or can we work things out? And I was blessed that they allowed that. And then I just kept moving up and moving up. I actually started as a substitute teacher who became a teacher who ended up starting the middle schools. We had middle schools, we helped with the high school, and we just kept growing it. And that great education, I found that because originally they didn't want to allow it to grow, but when you partnered with parents and other teachers and admin in the schools, because our archdiocese did not want it to grow, but when you can find the money and do it anyway,
Right.
so I'm a little bit of a rule breaker, it let me know people will galvanize if you have a common mission and if you can clearly share it. What broke my heart was when parents would come and say, Sheila, Miss Goad, we can't afford this tuition and college, and the reason why I'm sending him here is for college, but we can't start that college fund. We can't go on vacations, or we can't do our retirement. And then if you lost that family, I was like, a great education in what is supposedly the world's #1 country should not cost people extra money unless there's something else that you're looking for, maybe more faith-based extra component to it. But just a good, solid education shouldn't cost us, right?
100%.
And so then I had an opportunity. I went to law school for a little bit, and then I had an opportunity to and I had some friends who actually were lawyers who were principals and superintendents. That's how that happened. So I thought, I need something. I'm ready for a little more challenge. I need to learn something. I'm one of those people. What's my next challenge? What's my next challenge?
Oh, I love that.
And then after that, I didn't take the bar or anything. I really didn't want to be a lawyer. It was, what am I going to do with it? And I was thinking maybe professor, things like that, bring it all together. And I had this opportunity to throw my name in the hat for this thing called Unity. Well, I don't even know if we had the name yet, but I guess it was, but a charter school. And I thought, what the heck's a charter school? I never really heard of it. The more I did the research, I thought, I think this could work. We're talking about the ability to build more of a private school, but using public funding.
Yeah.
Hey, now I can support that. And in the researching of what a charter school is, or should be, it's an opportunity for a school to be very innovative, to not be afraid to make omelets. In other words, we're going to crack some eggs, folks.
Right.
We're going to make something new, and we're going to see if it works or not, so that we can share that knowledge with the public school districts. Hey guys, this is what's working for us. This isn't working for us. Let's look at calendars. Let's look at curriculum. Let's look at how we structure the day. Let's look at how we structure a school. And I thought that's up my alley. And so ultimately, bringing all of my background knowledge together at the different age groups, so whether it was from teaching 2nd grade through adults, it led me to here. It makes sense now. When you're doing it, it doesn't make sense when you're on your journey, right? But now you're like, well, of course, that's why I ended up here. The personality, and I had all those opportunities because it was meant for me to be here and bring it all together. So I got a great board who couldn't believe it. They let me even know, first of all, that they unanimously voted on me to take lead. They've been incredibly supportive. And that's been about 7 years ago. So we started with 72 kids. This year we were at 606. Next year we're at 840.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is incredible.
And it breaks your heart because there's more people on our wait list. And I think That's why I think charter schools' whole purpose is to show we can do this. I think, decided to start my own school, and I'm not throwing any shade, but at once upon a time, the U.S. was #1 in education around the world. And then we can look at it, and I can argue different points of where we are now, right? Because we could say, well,
Right.
hello, we're educating all of our kids. They're only educating their top 3%. I don't know if that's
Mm.
quite fair. Let me take my top 3% and go head to head. But at the end of the day, we're the powerhouse of the world, right?
Right.
Some say we're the police and we should be the role models. Well, then we should be able to educate all of our kids and be ranked higher than what we currently are. Let me put it
Mm.
that way. And so I think being able to choose my own curriculums, being able to choose my own teachers, not having somebody come in and saying, hey, Miss Reddick, you're doing a good job, so I'm going to pluck you from this school and take you to that school. Hey, I'm
Mm.
going to redistrict all of your kids. Even if they want to be here,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. We're pushing them somewhere else. We don't have those issues because technically I'm the superintendent. So if you start a
Right.
charter school, you're actually starting your own district. And
Right.
that gives you a lot of other power. It also is a whole other extra layer than just being a principal, because you have to do all of the central office stuff as well as all of your school operations day-to-day stuff. But it's incredibly empowering as well, you know?
Wow, that's an incredible story, and I think this is the first time that I don't know if most charter school leaders or people who or individuals that decide to open up charter schools have had experience working with almost an unlimited budget during your time at Comcast, which I think offers a very unique perspective as well. But it's clear that you are a great leader. You are a natural leader. I mean, I don't even, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, you're on target for 800 plus students. That is an incredible achievement. But now let's talk about charter schools, because charter schools and traditional public schools, this has been a debate, and like New York right now, the governor is pushing for more charter schools, and now we see opposition. I mean, this is a constant debate about charter school. Eliminate the charter schools. No, we need more charter schools. So we won't go too much into the debate because we all have different views. I am pro charter school personally, but I'm not going to get my opinions involved. But what are some basic pros and cons, if you will, of attending a charter school versus a traditional public school?
So I have
Or
a
are
lot
there
of
cons?
family members. I was going to say, so I'm like, how do I answer this one in a way that hopefully everybody in the audience understands? In my opinion, that and $5 might get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. In my opinion, both are incredibly important. I love history. I love to study battles. And when you're in a war, and when you're trying to save a country, when you're trying to save generations, when you're trying to build that up, we can look at that maybe as a war, especially when you're coming through something like COVID, right?
Okay.
There is a need for a huge battleship, right? Battleships can do things that the smaller ships can't do.
Right.
They just can't, right? And therefore they might have deeper pockets and they can do things different for maybe that average soldier, right?
Right.
But then you get those other little warships that can spin quicker, that are more agile. They can't hold as much. You're not going to put as much money into it. It doesn't cost that much for that one, right? But it also has its own limitations. So I think that's one of our societal issues is there's something about the United States that we want to say it's this or that. It's this versus that.
Mm.
And I think our society needs to open their eyes, wake up, because we are in a major situation here. And in my opinion, on a critical breaking point. We're losing teachers. People in my field, we can't hold on to them more than 3 years anymore. Used to be at least a 5-year average. It's gone down. In some states, it's 1 year to 3 years. So if we do that, that's an average of 2 years nationwide. That is scary statistics for where our educational system is going. So I think we need to quit. It's almost like politics, right? And I think that's a shame too. I think politics somewhere hijacked. Somebody, maybe about 100 years ago, figured out as a politician, if I can start running on an educational platform, and it may have been a good intentions, but somewhere politicians hijacked the educational system, which in my opinion, there should be no place for that. And it became this versus that. And it needs to be this and this, because the reality is we can't open up enough charter schools to take care of all of public schools. And public schools, God forbid, all charter schools and private schools close down. They couldn't handle the students.
Right.
So again, and it kind of goes back to what I was sharing before. The purpose of a charter school is to be what the public school isn't. Right? Is to try different things. It was all set up for innovation, so we can tell the big guys, hey guys, we're the special forces. So hey, if we do this, this is what's working. Or be careful, we tried this, it didn't work. Don't go there. Don't do it. Or learn from our mistake. If we could do it again, now that I'm sending you out, into those waters, what I'm going to tell you is, watch for this. Over here, it's low, there's a sand barge, so be careful, and I think we stop communicating, right, and working together, and it's a versus, and it should be more like this. And I think we need to wake up, and we need to wake up yesterday where that's concerned.
I can agree with you on that matter with certainty. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the issues right now and the crisis that's going on with the teachers. As you've mentioned, the average time of keeping a teacher right now it's even like 2 years now, right? Which is absolutely absurd. And we won't even get into the topics of why that's happening. I think it's clear, and we talk a lot about that on the podcast. But so I kind of want to flip the question and ask you, Ms. Reddick. So what are you doing? Can you share any strategies or anything that you're implementing in your school to kind of retain teachers for a longer period of time?
I don't know if I'd 100% agree with you, because I guess I would say, what do you mean by it's clear? Because I don't know if the reason why teachers are leaving is clear to the general public. I think that's another critical point that a lot of our citizens need to open their eyes and wake up. I don't understand why teachers don't get the same pay and respect as any new doctor starting out or any new lawyer starting out. We put just as much time and demanding on college, and we put just as much time and demands on them as far as continuing professional development. I think, unfortunately, because teachers back in, 1810 had a little schoolhouse, and it was a woman who would have their 8 kids and would teach and couldn't be married, and had all of her bills and housing taken care of by the family that hosted her to be the city's, teacher. Somehow that's still in society's mind, that's where 100%. We still are as education. In the old days in Russia, not that olden days, teachers were mostly all men, because the body, being a doctor, was almost all women. Bodies in their world, in their society, in Russia's world, was bodies are easy, right? We know exactly what bones are in there.
Right.
You got one heart, you got 2 lungs. That's the easy stuff. Women, you do that. Men, you're going to be the teacher, and we're going to pay you more than the doctors. Doctors get paid whatever. You're over here. But the brain, the complexity of a brain, that's complicated. Motivation, intrinsic motivation and attitude to help these kids to acquire wisdom, not just facts, but really the acquisition of wisdom with this human brain. And now you're going to do it with a kid? That takes a lot. And we flip-flopped it in our society. And I don't think we understand the demands on education in 2023. I don't think we understood the demands on education back in 1980. I'll be 31 years in education.
Wow.
We are nowhere close to paying teachers and giving them the respect that they are due. And we can't say that we respect it. And we turn around and we give them Teacher Appreciation Week because we don't want to pay them.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because we can talk when COVID happened, teachers were the heroes. Where are they now? No one ever speaks about a teacher being a hero. It's just it's just a narrative that we've said. So good job, teachers. Great job.
Thank you.
Now that it's over, bye-bye. Thank you. Moving on. Same thing with nurses. But
Uh, and nurse-
and I agree with you. And I don't think this conversation is going anywhere because I still don't think we're anywhere near on actually getting teachers to get compensated fairly, right? Am I correct in that? There's
and I think, to add on to the COVID was the tornado that took the house down to the foundation,
Hmm,
which does put us in a unique opportunity to rebuild, right? COVID was the hurricane that hit the Florida where it was like there isn't even a house anymore.
right.
We're currently in the aftermath. We're trying
Hmm,
to rebuild the houses. So it's not like, and I think that's part of the issue too. If you're not in education, society thinks, oh, that's okay. We're just going to go back to what was normal. You can't go back to what's normal when the house isn't building anymore.
right.
It's not built, much less having the electricity, much less having. So we have kids, but these are different kids. And I think people who've taken hiatus and were teachers before COVID and then come back after COVID aren't making it because it's a
Hmm,
different
yeah.
world. It's a different
Yeah.
world. And I think it's the same thing for admin. And like I said, we're even
Hmm,
worse off trying to hold admin than teachers. So I think one of the first things is one, put that a lot of parents need to start putting a lot of pressure on legislators. They got to go
hmm.
into their politicians and saying, I know, I hate to say it, I don't want to put shade on North Carolina. We still don't have our budget passed
Wow.
for this year. For this year. So
Yeah.
you're working on last year's budget. That's
Yep.
how do you run a business like that?
Yep.
One. Two, how well are you paying? You've got to be serious about it. Three, you also I think too is like I know I'm looking at, I don't know if we can afford it to be honest with you, but therapists for our
Mm,
employees,
right.
not just our students. We talked about a lot of therapy and helping out SEL with our students. Well, what about the teachers who teach those students and continuity in admin? Like I said, we've been here for 7 years. I about fell out of my chair when I looked around, and all the people that I started
Mm,
with, whether that was public or not, weren't there anymore. Somebody else pinpointed, they're like, Miss Reddick, you're the last one standing. I about
yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
cry. Because
Yeah.
how do we build continuity or a great education if you don't have the continuity with your admin? Because if they're not around, how are the teachers going to stick around? And if the
Right.
teachers don't stick around, what does that mean to a kid? Education. It all works together. It's not there's no magic bullet. And I think that's the other thing. People think that there's one magic bullet. You're dealing with humanity. There is no such thing as a magic bullet with humanity. It's a lot of different things that have to come together to create the fabric, to create a really strong fabric to support an individual. It's not just one little thing. So I
Yeah.
think I think it's better pay, and I say respect for the profession, because if you respect the profession, you're gonna pay the profession. One, and two, giving an emotional support. Hopefully, coming in and giving hugs, telling people when they're doing a great job, be willing to
Mm,
cry with them. Be willing to work with them. And I think that's maybe more of a corporate way. How can we work with you while you're going through this? Because you're a phenomenal teacher, but I understand if your husband may have had a seizure or a stroke and you've had no, history of that before. Well, I don't want you to just quit the profession because of that and then go into
yeah.
something else. How do we work with you? Um, it's becoming more of a kind of extended family and a place that people want to come, where they can feel appreciated, where they can be pushed to be all they can be. If you have a craft that you've chosen, what are we doing to help you be the best that you can be
Mm,
at? So supporting them in that, and having that open door policy that you can talk about challenges, concerns, and creating solutions to get people to where they need to be. Does that
mm.
make sense? I hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do have a deep understanding of some of these issues because we own a preschool. We're licensed under the Department of Education, so we're very well familiar. And over here, New York has exactly the same problems when it comes to budgetary issues. They haven't even passed a lot of the budget yet. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that because 2 months ago, I think we were having extreme difficulty dealing with the Department of Education, and not just us, but all the vendors that
Mhm.
run a multi-million-dollar organization, we have to pay people, and it's coming from the Department of Education. And I'm not even going to disclose. I don't want to say this out publicly, but the Department of Education has consistently owed us, and it's whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months delay on payments that are over six figures, and I want people to understand that. And so, what do, right? So it's so many issues, right? It's not just okay. It's literally so many issues. There are so many problems. But now, so here's my question though to you: do you think we need to see more quote unquote bloodshed before we see district leaders or new laws that get passed in? So, for example, I mean the teacher pipeline, right? Right now, that pipeline is really struggling, right? So, do we need to see more teachers leave the industry and more chaos happening before we see some light?
The response to that is, gosh, good Lord Almighty, let's hope not.
Right.
I'm hoping your podcast and people are doing podcasts like this, and that we're shining the light on it. That we could say, because we've been waving that flag, right, for a while, going, hello, people, somebody pay attention. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. But we've been doing that a few years ago. And then it keeps coming and coming and coming. And then unfortunately, if we look at history as a guide, we tend to not do anything until, we're beyond critical mass. Now it's broken. Now what do we do? And when all of a sudden all of the, there's not enough teachers anymore to run a school, so now all schools are going back to look like what it was with COVID time, but it's only because we don't have the teachers to have a school.
Right.
That because I think it was just a national average that came out that our bigger public schools, they're all nationally 25% below where they need to be on teachers to run the school.
Wow.
So if you're a quarter of your teachers aren't there, so we're already in the danger zone, right? That's why I said I think we're at critical mass. But unfortunately, the explosion might have to happen before it really gets taken seriously. And that's my fear. My hope, I tend to be an optimistic realist. My hope is people are starting to sense it enough this year that without teachers being there, because I don't know any school this year that wasn't affected. And there, as hard as COVID was, I would say nationwide, and I know we felt it at this school, unfortunately, we were not immune, and we're doing much better than some of the schools when I talk to executive directors and that hold my position and other superintendents. We're faring better than they are. But I don't know any school that was 100% staffed and doing well. It just didn't happen this year. And so if nobody's not affected, we need our families to start stomping their feet, knocking on doors, making phone calls and saying, put politics aside anymore. This is for saving our nation. We have to educate our children, and it's not happening. Because if you don't pay people enough, I have literally had parents say, or kids who thought about being a teacher tell me. So I've heard this more than once where a family said, I will help you pay for your education and tuition at blah, blah, blah. My son graduated from Clemson. So these happen to be two families going to Clemson. And they said, I'm happy to help pay for housing and all that, but I won't do it if you get a teaching degree. I'm not going to pay that much money for you to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And that, I think, sums it up right there. But if that teacher, if they came out and got paid more, mom and dad might say, I'm happy to help you figure out a way to get to school so that you can become a teacher, because I know you'll be okay fiscally. You'll be able to feed yourself. You'll be able to pay your bills. You'll be able to get that house or whatever. You'll be okay. You might not be a millionaire, but you're going to be okay. That's how it used to be. And nowadays, it's not so much with a lot of people.
Yep.
And especially given the demands that's put on anybody that's in a school system. I don't care what role you have in the schools.
Right.
And for charter schools are known, at least right now, our newest reports just came out. It used to be more like 75 cents to the dollar. Then it kind of went down to 70 cents for the dollar. What I heard was recently, at least here where we are, we're down to like 63 cents to the dollar. And it's not that you're not funded the same money. It's how they do the funding so that they don't always have to give you those amounts, And I think that's wrong. Like you were saying, it's how the Department of Education starts doing some of the funding sometimes.
Right.
And that's nationwide, right? It's like, why aren't we all
Right.
just funded the same? And wouldn't it be
Right.
easier for them? It's
Right.
that I think there's some of the bigger issues we have to start taking seriously and tackle and not let it get so political, because unfortunately in today's 2023 world, politics, man, we're getting nowhere fast.
Yeah.
In fact, it's like quicksand. It just
Yes.
stops it and sucks the problem down. So,
Unfortunately, that's true. Well, this has been such a great conversation. In fact, I couldn't even get through 80% of the questions I wanted to ask you. So I think we're going to have actually I would love to do this, that we're going to bring you back on in the near future, because this has been such a great conversation, and I want to catch up, whether it's 3 months from now or 6 months from now. I want to carry on this conversation and see what has changed in 6 months. It'll be a great conversation, but I do want to ask you one last question before I do let you go. And it's, by the way, it's been an immense pleasure talking about this, and you're absolutely correct. And for anyone who's listening, I've heard many speakers give their own take on this, but the best one I've heard so far is, in my opinion, is teachers are not going to make the change in this issue that we're facing. It's everybody else. The parents, you're listening right now, you need to go ahead and call up your politicians, your local leaders, whoever you have to call. You need to go ahead and advocate for change. Key stakeholders in different companies, the directors and VPs and CEOs at Comcast, tech companies out there. Doesn't matter where you are, because this is a problem that involves all of us. This is a global problem. This is a problem that everybody in any industry, if you're in the manufacturing industry as a VP, you should be concerned about this. And the only way we're going to have change is if you get involved, right? So it's every industry. So this is a call to everybody out there. And that's where we're going to see possibly some change. But Ms. Reddick, I do want to ask you our last question over here, which is, who has been the strongest or most inspiring person in your life, and what lessons have you learned from them?
oh my goodness, those are the kind that makes me cry. I'm like, oh, I love this person. Um, I've been blessed to be around some amazing people to learn from. See, I told you make me cry, but really, I'd say my parents.
Okay.
They're instrumental. Dad is first generation here, work ethic galore. Went back to school to do better. My mom supported him. She went back to school. Uh, we maybe not always had everything, but we were a family, and they taught me, family is todo. And
Yeah.
it was when you're loved as a kid and they tell you, girl, you can do anything. What do you want to do? Go do it. Go make that
Wow.
positive difference in the world. Go make your mark. Let them know you are here. It is such a powerful thing, other parents out there to say to their kids. That's the school we try to be, to tell those kids that you're believed in, so that they can hopefully go out there and be all that they can be. So they're probably the number one. And if I had to choose anything else, it would be my kids,
Okay.
because they make me want to be a better person, to leave the world a better place. I'm concerned where we're going. If we don't have teachers, what's going to happen to their kids? What's going to happen to this country? What's going to happen to our businesses? The kindergartners that we have currently right now, we don't even know the careers are growing up to be. If these kids don't know how to learn, if they don't know how to evolve, the current 34-year-old right now has had 4 different careers, not jobs, careers. If you don't know how to learn, we're in trouble. We've got an 85,500 square foot building we just built. We didn't finish our 3rd floor. They're dying to find good tradespeople. You can make a
Wow.
great living up there.
Yeah.
Where are these people? We're in trouble. We have got to take education seriously, because like you said, it's the only thing that affects everything in this country. So my hope is that everybody has the kind of role models that I did. And I hope they're in their backyard. I hope they're in their house. I
Yeah.
hope people are getting their inspiration from parents. And if not from parents, then from their teachers. to go out there and be the best that they can be, because it's those people who go out there and make a big difference. And, I was, again, blessed at Comcast. I got to work with so many amazing trainers, and I learned a lot from them. We used to bring them in twice a year, especially for our big national conferences, you name it, Covey, Maxwell.
Wow. Yeah.
Big football coaches, Notre Dame, they were there. All of them started as some kid with hopefully a family who showed support to them,
Yeah.
and then a teachers who believed in them and pushed them forward. That's what we need
Wow.
to do in our country.
Miss Reddick, thank you for sharing your such a powerful story, and I promise you that you are creating a very big positive change in society. Exactly what your parents set out and told you to do. So it's exactly what you're doing. I mean, it's incredible what you have accomplished over all these years. The numbers speak for themselves. I can't wait to have another conversation with you,
I
because
love it. It's
this
been
is
so
this
much
is
fun.
this
Thank
is a
you.
fantastic conversation, and I think we can speak for the next 3 hours and still
Yeah,
not be done,
probably
because we
could.
literally went over like 2 questions only, and it's been such an incredible pleasure to get to speak with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing, trying to get the stories out. I appreciate it. And I'd love to be a guest. You made this so easy and so much fun. So thank
Of
you.
course,
And,
thank
and
you.
much
And Miss Reddick,
success.